Have you ever wondered why the person who seemed so confident becomes strangely restless after losing someone who loved with honesty? Why the one who believed they held all the power cannot seem to escape the shadow of a choice they made themselves? The answer is not hidden in anger. It is hidden in truth. And truth has a remarkable way of waiting patiently until every mask grows too heavy to wear. There is a kind of love that gives without counting, listens without demanding, and hopes without pretending. That love is often underestimated because it is gentle. People mistake kindness for weakness. They believe compassion can be manipulated forever. They believe a heart that forgives has no limits, but every soul has a threshold where love stops chasing and begins choosing itself. The moment a super empath walks away is not simply the end of a relationship. It is the end of an illusion. The admiration that once reflected the narcissist's desired image disappears. The control they depended on begins to dissolve. The silence they expected to punish another slowly becomes a room where they must finally hear themselves. And for someone who has spent a lifetime avoiding that voice, silence can become the loudest consequence. This is not a story about revenge. It is not about celebrating another person's downfall. It is about understanding a truth that many people discover only after surviving deep emotional wounds. The person who betrays genuine love may win a moment, but they often lose something they cannot replace. Authentic connection cannot be recreated through manipulation. Trust cannot be demanded after it has been broken. And the peace that comes from living honestly cannot be borrowed from someone else's heart. If you have ever questioned your worth because someone failed to recognize it, stay with this message. What feels like rejection today may become the very reason you discover your greatest strength tomorrow. Sometimes the deepest victory is not proving your value to the person who betrayed you. It is realizing your value never depended on their ability to see it. Today, we begin a journey into the hidden consequences of betrayal, the resilience of a compassionate heart, and the quiet power that emerges when a person finally chooses themselves. There is a quiet misunderstanding in the world that has lasted for generations. People often believe that the loudest voice is the strongest, that the hardest heart is the safest, and that the person who feels the least somehow possesses the greatest power. Yet life continues to reveal a different truth. Real strength rarely announces itself. It does not demand applause or seek permission to exist. It lives in the individual who continues to choose compassion even after experiencing disappointment. The super empath carries this kind of strength, a strength so calm and steady that it is frequently mistaken for weakness by those who measure power through control instead of character. A super empath does not ignore pain because they are blind to it. They see it more clearly than most people. They notice the subtle changes in a person's voice, the sadness hidden behind forced laughter, and the fear concealed beneath anger. Their sensitivity is not a flaw, but an extraordinary ability to understand the emotional world of others. Unfortunately, this gift attracts people who mistake kindness for unlimited tolerance. They assume that someone who forgives easily will never leave, and that someone who loves deeply will always accept being treated unfairly. This assumption becomes the greatest mistake they can make. Compassion should never be confused with surrender. A super empath may offer second chances because they believe people can grow, but that belief is rooted in hope, not helplessness. They are willing to invest time, patience, and understanding because they value relationships. However, every act of generosity has a boundary. Every heart eventually recognizes the difference between helping someone heal and allowing someone to continue causing harm. When that realization arrives, the super empath begins to choose self-respect over self-sacrifice. Many people fail to recognize how much courage it takes to remain kind in a world that often rewards selfishness. It is easy to become cold after betrayal. It is easy to build walls so high that no one can enter. Choosing empathy after heartbreak requires far greater strength than choosing bitterness. It demands emotional discipline, wisdom, and an unwavering belief that another person's actions do not have to define your own character. Those who rely on manipulation often expect predictable reactions. They anticipate tears, endless arguments, desperate attempts to fix what they have broken, or a constant need for validation. What surprises them is the quiet confidence of someone who finally understands their own worth. A super empath does not become powerful by becoming cruel. Their greatest transformation happens when they stop trying to convince others to value them and begin valuing themselves without needing outside approval. This inner strength changes everything. Their kindness becomes intentional instead of automatic. Their generosity becomes balanced with healthy boundaries. Their forgiveness no longer means giving endless opportunities to repeat the same mistakes. Instead, it becomes an act of releasing emotional burdens while refusing to reopen doors that lead back to suffering. The world often celebrates visible victories, but the greatest triumphs happen within the human spirit. A super empath's strength is found in the ability to love without losing themselves, to care without accepting disrespect, to remain compassionate without becoming a victim, and to walk away with dignity when protecting their peace becomes the highest expression of self-worth. Betrayal is often viewed as an act committed against another person, but it also becomes a mirror that reflects the hidden condition of the one who chooses it. For a narcissist, betrayal is rarely about love or the absence of it. It is about maintaining control, protecting an image, and avoiding the discomfort of vulnerability. When they betray a super empath, they often believe they are securing their own advantage. They imagine they are proving their independence, preserving their superiority, or escaping accountability. Yet what they fail to recognize is that the very act of betrayal exposes the fear they have spent so much of their life trying to conceal. At the heart of narcissistic behavior lies an overwhelming need for validation. The admiration of others becomes a source of emotional survival rather than a simple pleasure. Compliments, attention, obedience, and constant reassurance create the illusion of strength, but beneath that carefully constructed image often exists a fragile sense of self. The super empath, through genuine love and unwavering support, provides a steady reflection that temporarily quiets these insecurities. When that relationship is damaged through betrayal, the illusion begins to crack. Initially, the narcissist may appear unaffected. They may act confident, replace the relationship quickly, or present themselves as happier than ever. These displays are often designed to protect the image they want others to believe. Admitting regret or emotional pain would require acknowledging imperfection, something they struggle to accept. Instead of facing their actions honestly, they frequently seek distractions, new sources of admiration, or situations that allow them to feel important again. These temporary solutions can delay self-reflection, but they rarely eliminate the deeper emptiness that remains. The greatest fear exposed by betrayal is not the loss of one individual alone. It is the loss of control over the story they tell themselves. A super empath eventually stops providing endless understanding, endless forgiveness, and endless emotional energy. Once those gifts are withdrawn, the narcissist can no longer rely on them to reinforce the identity they created. They are forced to confront a reality in which manipulation no longer produces the desired outcome. This fear often leads to unpredictable behavior. Some attempt to regain contact through apologies that lack genuine accountability. Others resort to blame, hoping to shift responsibility onto the person they hurt. Some may even attempt to provoke emotional reactions, simply to reassure themselves that they still hold influence. These actions reveal an inability to accept that another person has chosen peace over chaos. Meanwhile, the super empath begins to discover something unexpected. The energy once spent trying to rescue the relationship is redirected toward personal healing, meaningful connections, and self-discovery. As confidence grows, the narcissist's influence naturally fades. Witnessing this transformation can be especially difficult because it challenges the belief that they remain the center of another person's emotional world. True confidence is built through honesty, responsibility, and the willingness to grow from mistakes. A narcissist who avoids these qualities remains trapped in a cycle of protecting appearances rather than developing genuine self-worth. Betraying someone who offered authentic care does not strengthen that fragile foundation. Instead, it reveals how dependent it was on borrowed validation, external control, and the constant need to avoid facing the truth within themselves rather than the image they worked so tirelessly to defend. Pain has a remarkable way of revealing the path each person chooses when life becomes difficult. Some people allow suffering to become a teacher, while others spend their lives trying to outrun it. This difference becomes especially clear after betrayal. A super empath and a narcissist may experience the same ending, but they rarely experience the same transformation. One chooses to face the wound, while the other often chooses to avoid it. That single decision shapes the future more than the betrayal itself. A super empath does not heal because the pain disappears overnight. They heal because they are willing to acknowledge what happened without denying its impact. They allow themselves to grieve the broken trust, the lost dreams, and the emotional investment that can never be returned. Although this process is uncomfortable, it becomes the foundation for genuine recovery. Every difficult emotion they face teaches them something about their needs, their boundaries, and the kind of relationships they deserve. Healing is not a straight line. There are moments of doubt, loneliness, and sadness. Memories return unexpectedly, and old questions may resurface. Yet instead of allowing these moments to define them, the super empath gradually learns to respond with greater wisdom. They begin to understand that another person's inability to love honestly is not a reflection of their own worth. This realization becomes one of the most powerful turning points in their journey. Instead of searching for validation from the person who caused the pain, they begin finding confidence within themselves. As they continue healing, their perspective changes. They become more aware of unhealthy patterns they once overlooked. They recognize the importance of mutual respect, emotional honesty, and consistent actions over empty promises. Rather than becoming cynical, they become discerning. Their compassion remains, but it is now guided by healthy boundaries instead of endless sacrifice. They no longer feel responsible for fixing people who refuse to take responsibility for themselves. The narcissist, however, often struggles to experience this kind of growth because true healing requires self-reflection. It demands the courage to admit mistakes, accept consequences, and confront uncomfortable truths. These are experiences that challenge the carefully protected image they depend upon. Instead of examining their behavior, they may blame circumstances, criticize former partners, or quickly seek another relationship to fill the emotional emptiness left behind. While these distractions provide temporary relief, they prevent meaningful change from taking place. Without genuine self-examination, destructive patterns tend to repeat themselves. The same need for control, admiration, and emotional dominance appears in new relationships, creating familiar conflicts with different people. Because the deeper issues remain unresolved, each new beginning eventually leads towards similar disappointments. The scenery changes, but the cycle remains the same. Meanwhile, the super empath grows stronger with every lesson learned. The pain that once felt unbearable slowly becomes evidence of resilience rather than defeat. Their confidence no longer depends on being accepted by everyone. Their peace no longer depends on someone else's behavior. They discover that healing is not about forgetting the past, but about refusing to let it control the future. This quiet transformation is what makes genuine healing so powerful. It turns heartbreak into wisdom, disappointment into clarity, and loss into renewed purpose. While one person remains trapped in repeating familiar patterns, the other continues moving forward with greater self-awareness, stronger boundaries, deeper emotional freedom, and a heart that chooses truth over illusion, growth over denial, and lasting peace over temporary comfort. Self-worth is one of the few treasures in life that cannot truly be taken from you, even though many people spend years believing otherwise. It is easy to confuse another person's treatment of you with your actual value. When someone lies, manipulates, betrays, or abandons you, the pain can create the illusion that you are somehow not enough. A super empath often struggles with this illusion because they naturally look inward before pointing blame outward. They examine every conversation, every decision, and every moment, wondering what they could have done differently. While self-reflection is healthy, carrying responsibility for another person's choices only delays healing. Deception has a unique way of attacking confidence. It whispers that your kindness was foolish, your trust was misplaced, and your love was undeserved. These thoughts can become louder after betrayal because the emotional wound is still fresh. Yet none of these beliefs represent the truth. A dishonest person's actions reveal their own character, not yours. Someone who chooses manipulation does not diminish the value of the person they deceive. They simply expose the limits of their own integrity. The super empath gradually discovers that self-worth is not earned through another person's approval. It is not dependent on constant praise, perfect relationships, or the ability to make everyone happy. Real self-worth exists long before anyone recognizes it. It is rooted in personal values, honesty, compassion, resilience, and the courage to remain authentic despite disappointment. These qualities cannot be stolen because they are built from within rather than given by someone else. One of the most important moments in recovery arrives when the super empath stops asking, "Why wasn't I enough?" and begins asking, "Why did I believe I had to prove my worth to someone who refused to value it?" That single shift changes everything. The focus moves away from chasing answers that may never come and toward rebuilding a life grounded in self-respect. Instead of seeking closure from the person who caused the pain, they begin creating closure through their own growth. This transformation also changes the way future relationships are approached. The super empath no longer measures love by how much they are willing to sacrifice. They begin measuring it by mutual respect, emotional safety, honesty, and consistency. They understand that healthy love does not require abandoning personal boundaries or ignoring repeated disrespect. Instead, it encourages both people to grow while maintaining their individuality and dignity. As confidence returns, old fears begin to lose their influence. The fear of being alone is replaced by the peace of enjoying one's own company. The fear of rejection becomes less powerful because personal value no longer depends on another person's acceptance. The fear of starting over slowly transforms into excitement for creating a healthier future built on wisdom instead of wishful thinking. This journey does not erase the memory of betrayal, but it changes its meaning. The experience becomes a lesson rather than a life sentence. It reminds the super empath that kindness should never come at the cost of self-respect, and that forgiveness does not require forgetting the standards that protect emotional well-being. Every step toward healing strengthens the understanding that authentic confidence is created by living in alignment with one's values, not by winning the approval of people who refuse to recognize genuine love. In the end, the greatest victory is realizing that your worth was never hidden inside another person's opinion. It has always existed within you, waiting to be fully believed, protected, and lived. One of the most difficult lessons after betrayal is realizing that healing does not begin when the other person changes. It begins when you stop carrying responsibilities that were never yours to bear. Many super empaths spend months, sometimes years, trying to understand why someone chose deception over honesty or control over genuine connection. They replay conversations, search for hidden meanings, and imagine different outcomes that might have saved the relationship. Although this reflection often comes from a sincere desire to learn, it can quietly become an emotional burden that keeps the past alive long after the relationship has ended. A super empath naturally wants to help, to understand, and to forgive. These qualities are beautiful when shared with someone who values them. However, when offered to a person who refuses accountability, they can become chains instead of gifts. The empath begins carrying guilt that belongs to someone else, accepting blame for wounds they did not create, and believing it is their responsibility to repair what another person repeatedly chose to break. Over time, this emotional weight becomes exhausting, leaving little energy for personal growth or inner peace. Freedom begins with recognizing the difference between compassion and responsibility. You can understand another person's pain without allowing it to excuse harmful behavior. You can wish them healing without sacrificing your own. You can forgive them without inviting them back into a place where they can continue causing damage. These distinctions are not signs of bitterness. They are signs of emotional maturity. Healthy boundaries are not walls built to keep love away. They are doors that allow only respect to enter. Letting go does not mean pretending the betrayal never happened. It means refusing to allow it to define every chapter that follows. The memories may remain, but they no longer control your decisions. The disappointment may still exist, but it loses the power to shape your identity. Instead of waking each day focused on what was lost, you gradually begin noticing what is still possible. Your energy returns. Your curiosity returns. Your hope returns. The future stops looking like an extension of the past and begins to feel like unexplored ground filled with new opportunities. One of the greatest acts of self-respect is accepting that not every question will receive an answer. Some people will never explain their actions honestly because doing so would require facing truths they have avoided for years. Waiting for their understanding, apology, or validation only delays your own healing. Peace arrives when you give yourself permission to move forward without those missing pieces. Your closure becomes an internal decision rather than an external event. As this freedom grows, the super empath starts investing emotional energy where it truly belongs. Relationships become healthier because they are built on mutual trust instead of endless rescue attempts. Personal goals become clearer because attention is no longer consumed by someone else's choices. Joy returns in simple moments that once felt impossible to appreciate. Life expands beyond the pain that once seemed overwhelming. The person who betrayed you may continue carrying unresolved patterns until they choose to confront them, but that journey belongs to them alone. Your path is different. It is the path of releasing unnecessary burdens, honoring your own heart, and refusing to let another person's decisions determine the quality of your future. The moment you stop carrying what was never yours, you create space for peace, confidence, healthier relationships, deeper purpose, and the quiet freedom that comes from choosing yourself without guilt, without fear, and without looking back.